Hello all. This is week one of a new set, another new set, as we're now into May, and a lovely month it is too. Probably my favourite, while waiting for all the lots of beautiful flowers to appear in the garden over the summer. But today I'm going to demonstrate a blossom. This is a pear blossom from my tree in the garden. As you can see, some of it's still in bud, which is nice, and some of it has opened, and I have some in front of me which is very, very open and no buds left at all. So if you were to have some and bring it in, beware, because the buds won't stay buds for very long. It opens right out. These are the colours that I've decided to use, and as I mentioned last week, I'm going to try some line and wash. This is a particularly good subject, really, I think, for line and wash, because as you can see, all the little flowers sit one on top of another and will be a lot easier to portray with the paint once I've drawn it, hopefully, with the pen. Okay, so nice loose drawing, and we'll see how that goes. Right, I'll just have to put those to one side a little bit. I've got out some rose madder rather than the permanent rose, which is a softer pink and I think more suitable for the little pink areas. In fact, I'm going to overemphasize the pink because today I didn't want to stick with just a white flower. I've taken the dark grey pen out of my set, which is a 0.5, so that's a kind of medium thickness, and I'll just do a little bit of drawing to start with to show you the way I use the pen. Okay. So what I did with my main drawing, as you'll see in a minute, I actually took a soft pencil, if I have one here, and gave myself a guide as to where I want the branches to sit. So for instance, if I was doing something like this, it would help me to just get that in to decide where I want to follow, the shape that I would want to follow. But after that, it's a matter really, I think, of just using the pen. Otherwise you'll draw it and then draw it again, which is not particularly sensible and not necessary. So hold your pen nice and loosely, as we've talked about before, and get it going first. And so lovely little loose drawings of the flowers, and not pressing just pressing lightly, not being heavy with the drawing at all. Popping little scribbly centre in, and any other markings that you see and folds and things can be drawn into. But now you see how much easier it is to actually cope with this using the pen with one petal sitting behind another, and being reasonably small as well. You can always draw them a little bit bigger if you need to, but I'm keeping my pen down. I'm not lifting it off all the time. I'm being quite loose and a little bit scribbly with the drawing, which is actually going to loosen it up. There's nothing worse than, I think, in my opinion, if you're actually drawing one of these flowers and getting down like this, as if you're going to write a letter, and giving it a hard edge. This is a lovely soft little blossom which is delicate and light And that's what I want to try and portray using my pen. You see what I mean? Putting in every little bit of detail this way. Maybe you do like it. If you do, well, okay, fine. But in my opinion, not as nice as this. And then of course it's got little buds going on. So with my blossom picture, I haven't followed precisely what I've seen in front of me. I've just got the idea of the way it all works and the way it sits and the way it looks, and I've actually created my own, some leaves perhaps, and I've created my own composition from what I could see in front of me. I just find that easier, but if you want to follow whatever, then you know, whatever you've got in front of you, that's fine. And of course there's a branch to deal with, and world's your oyster with this. You can put in all those little markings, and then there isn't very much to do when it comes to having to paint. Okay, so you've got the idea of the drawing. I just want to give you an idea of some backgrounds that you could put in or leave out, as the case may be. Because I've decided to use more pink, I've allowed the pink to bleed beyond the little blossoms and to try and create the look of more blossom happening all around, and that way it's going to loosen up the whole situation. If you want to create a white one, it will obviously need a little bit of shadow in it and the centre, but then you could put and paint negatively around it with another colour. Blue looks really nice. And again, leaving little patches to indicate maybe more going on. I don't know quite what I'm going to do today on mine. Maybe I'll do a bit of both, just so that you can see what I mean there. Okay, so that's just a little indication of the way you could create a looser picture creating the background. Right, so here's my drawing. Put this here somewhere so you can see a little bit of what I've got going on. And I can see the colours. Right. I've got out a medium-sized brush, round brush, nice soft round brush, not too pointed, and I've got out a tiny one for the little stamens in the centre, and maybe I'll use the dagger brush for the stalk and the branch. Right, so because I've drawn it, I can begin there and work my way through. Not sure if I'll get the whole thing done without switching off, but we'll see. I've got a nice juicy paint already, and so we're not going to paint in the way that we normally do. It is really just a matter of dropping in little bits of colour, little bits of shadow, and leaving lots of white. The flowers have been depicted, the whole thing has been depicted by the pen, so in fact there is no need to paint really detailed. This is a wash, and that's the difference. Painting a wash, or in fact painting as we normally do without the pen. So I'll just do a little bit at the top here, and then I'll put some background and so on in. this is a nice way to begin loosening up with your pictures. So I've got the nice summery green mixed up as well with a leaf here. It's nice to stay within your drawn lines and at the same time working beyond your lines rather than colouring it in like a colouring book, because this is what's going to loosen the whole thing up. The trouble with painting this way, we do tend to want to put all the detail in, and so you've got to bear in mind all the time to keep it nice and loose, and it is just putting on a wash. I have my browns already mixed here and not very much space because of that huge thing to put it. So let's pop a little bit of the branch in as we go along. And that's obviously got to have some dark in it. It's got lots of colours in that branch and green also. So real dark now. Just dropping it in. Dropping it in this way is going to help to create some texture. Right. So maybe I could just indicate a little bit more blossom going on around. Which will completely loosen the picture up. And then I think we need to get just a little bit darker in places with the green. So I've got my two greens mixed up, one that's more of an olive and my nice summery spring green. Right, let's see what happens if I put a little bit of blue round here now. So I've got some cobalt blue, nice and juicy. Nice and light. And working negatively here and there, just around my subject. Keeping the outside of it nice and light and watery so that it floats away. So again, holding the brush very loosely so that I don't get too detailed and too heavy with it. But you can see how you can wash over your pen work here and there, and it really doesn't make any difference. In fact, it enhances the whole thing, I think. It loosens it all up and creates a nice end result. And as always, we're not going to know what we've got until the end, when it's all dry. So I think it could have a little bit stronger, drier paint now, here and there, just to drop in over the top while it's still a little bit damp, a little bit stronger colour. So that's actually using not such a watery mix, but helping to bring that whole thing to life a little bit more. You always have another brush at the ready just to use with your greens, so that you don't have to keep washing your brush. Nice pointy one for some of the leaf. And then of course the little stamens in the centre are going to bring those open ones to life. So that's alizarin crimson. A little touch here and there. And some ultramarine blue mixed with some burnt sienna for some of the darker ones. They've got lots of little stamens in there. Right, I'm going to stop and carry on, do some more, and then we can see what the whole thing looks like when I've completed it and put all the branch in, okay? I've washed more colour onto the blossom, but now I want to put a nice washy background behind to create a nice area behind, which is hopefully going to bring the little white edges of the flowers out a little bit more too. So nice and wet, and just loosely dropping that in. A little bit of the pink can go in with it. That'll make a little variegated wash behind and give the impression that there's more blossom sitting behind. This is a very nice way to create a quick card for someone as well. So dropping a little bit more green in here and there to create, there isn't very much leaf, but just breaks the monotony to have a little bit more green going on. And I'm going to leave the branch until last because it's darker. I can just paint over anything else that I might have already laid down. So varying the tones of this little background. Blossom is very, very delicate, so you've got to paint in this nice, delicate way, I think, to portray it properly. So there are some nice shadowy tones appearing as well with the mixture of the blue and the pink together. So wet on wet's fine. I'm just going to make nice marks for you. You can take more time over it than I am, but at the same time, don't get too detailed and too graphic with it. Keep it loose. I hope you can see it okay. Just trying to keep the little light areas of the flowers free of paint so that it looks more realistic. So painting around those a bit more carefully. And then hopefully they'll show up nicely. A little bit of green around can help to bring them out as well. You should all be able to get hold of some blossom. There's lots and lots around. You see it on in the hedgerows if you haven't got it in your garden. This is a nice way of portraying the blossom. I prefer it to actually using the masking fluid, but I do realise we have to use masking fluid sometimes too. Right, I've tried to get a little bit stronger and with a little bit more going on in this area because it's the focal area. My block is actually cockling a little bit, but it will straighten again. I'm using quite a lot of water. I don't know if you can see that I'm using quite a lot of water. When painting wet on wet and you want to keep control, it's a good idea to allow the water to actually stop puddling before you pop down the paint. When it's shiny, it's really very, very wet, but once it starts to absorb into the paper, the shine goes away from it. So in fact, that's a good time to actually drop in your paint, but I haven't the time to do that, so I'm coping with it this way. And that's why I'm getting cockling happening, I think. So a little bit of darker green in places around this nice area here. Now I'm going to let it dry and pop in the branches. Right, I'll just stop while I dry this off. Right, that's reasonably dry now, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful about the way I paint the branch, and that's going to give it lots of lovely strength all the way through the centre of the picture. So just washing this on because the marks have already been made with the pen. Nice ultramarine blue with the raw umber will make a nice dark grey colour. I think I might prefer that to the neutral tint. And while that's still damp, if you pop that in, it's going to create nice texture marks. You can put a little bit of green in there as well, I think, because it's got that lichen on it. Lots of different browns going on in there. And through the centre here, I'm just going to get a little bit darker. So not touching it too much, leaving light in there as well, just washing it in. If you haven't done this before, then I would suggest practicing with a small piece like my practice one, and then going into something a little bit more complicated and maybe larger. But as I said, we'll make lovely cards as well, so you could do like a little production line of little blossom cards. Dropping some water on the top of that will give it some texture. Tried to vary the colours and tones in the branch to create just a little bit more interest there. Fruit trees are now all starting to bloom, so hopefully you'll find something. I'm looking forward to the apple blossom coming, because that's a lovely colour. Right, so that's brought the whole situation together, hasn't it, by popping that through and giving that some structure through the centre of it. So really I don't have to do very much more to that, apart from what I think I will do. Nice clean brush, and using some of the alizarin, I'm going to be very brave and just give it a little bit of splattering here and there, which I think will just give it another dimension and a nice look. So nice pointy brush if you want to have small splatter, as I did. But if you want big splatter, you use a bigger brush without too much of a point going on. And then just the brush with the paint on in the hand that you paint with, another brush to tap, and I'm just putting a little bit of ultramarine blue on top as well. So I think that's enough. If it strays and you don't want it to, if you're nice and quick, you can actually wipe away any that you are not happy with, and they will dry up lighter, as will everything else. Okay, so that's my nice line and wash quick painting for today. That's not too bad. It's what you have to be aware of is, which I didn't think about too much. Oh, I don't know. I was thinking I was maybe leaving too much space up there, but I think it's all right. It is all right. Yeah, I could actually put a little bit more going on up there in the background. So if you've got a branch like that, just beware of, if you want to frame your picture up, that you don't leave too much of a gap anywhere like that. But yeah, that's okay. So I shall look forward to seeing what you do. I hope you managed to get hold of some blossom of some description. I guess there are other flowers that you can paint in a similar way, but I'd like to see some blossom. Not many of you have painted blossom this year, and it's so lovely. I'll put some notes in showing the procedure, and I'll, post this as well. The end result should actually be a painting which is nice and light and free, which is fun to look at and fun to paint. They're not, it's not a very detailed or strong painting at all. But next week I'm going to actually demonstrate with line and wash a pansy, which will have more detail and a little bit more strength to it and a little bit more detail. So we'll see how that goes next week. Have a good week, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye.